toxic masculinity.
Twitter says calling the Syrian-born Muslim a white Christian terrorist is not misinformation. Yeah, this is annoying, actually. I find this... God, Twitter. So for those of you who don't know, I actually made a 3-part video about Twitter and about how irresponsible they are and how biased they are and how much they lie. So I really encourage everybody to watch that. I mean, you know, I would say just watch the first one if you're, but they're all so good. Like, I'm not saying that because I'm like some kind of genius, but I mean, obviously, but the first part, the second part, and the third part are all critical because they all show different kinds of lies and different ways that Jack Dorsey and his minion Vijaya get away with. There was an echo in the intro. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, I should have turned my volume off, but whatever. It all shows how they lie and how they manipulate and how they've got a double standard and they're all hypocrites and stuff like that. And Trump said he was thinking about starting his own social media site. And I was thinking, maybe I'll do my own social media site. I haven't decided. I'm deciding between 2 different kinds of social media sites that I would want to commission somebody to build for me. And I have a friend who's doing a social media site as well, so maybe I'll combine it with his. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to call him and ask what he's up to. I haven't talked to him in a while. But, yeah, maybe I'll do my own Mr. Reagan-style social media site. It won't be... I don't think I want to do something that's just, like, purely conservative, but I do want to do something. I do want to do something. So stay tuned. Watch this space, as they say in Britain. Okay, so... Right, so Twitter says calling Ahmad Aliwi Elisa a white Christian terrorist doesn't violate its misinformation policy. And this is like, you know, this is in keeping with Twitter tradition, which is that they seemed to tailor all of their rules to subjugating, conservatives to strict rules and all this kind of like trying to censor them. There we go. There's the other one. All right. Kicking us off the platform, banning us, censoring us in whatever way they can. They tailor their rules to be able to censor conservatives and to avoid censoring leftists. It's really weird. Like, there are so many lies. There are so many lies on the left that just go unchecked by Twitter. They just have no interest in fact-checking them. But every single thing that conservatives say is not only fact-checked, but often erroneously fact-checked. I mean, the most famous cases, of course, is the New York Post article where they're talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, right? That whole article was banned from the site, despite the fact that it was 100% true. And, you know, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey had to come and apologize afterwards, but he wasn't. Was he sorry? I mean, I doubt it. They just love screwing with conservatives and helping leftists, and that's why we need to make our own social media sites. All right, let's have a look here. Okay, Twitter told Newsweek, this is Newsweek magazine, which isn't even a conservative, whatever you call it, journal or publication. Let's call it a publication. Twitter told Newsweek that characterizing accused mass killer Ahmad al-Aliwi Elisa, I just gotta do that name a few times so I can get it in my head. As a white Christian terrorist doesn't violate its misinformation policies, even though Elisa is from Syria and has been identified as Muslim. Authorities charged Elisa, 21, with 10 counts of first-degree murder in connection with Monday's mass killing in King Soopers grocery store. Why did it have to be such a silly name for a grocery store? In Boulder, Colorado. But prior to the suspect's identity being made public, the magazine said numerous Twitter users assumed the suspect was white and characterized the massacre as another example of racial injustice and white supremacy in the United States, as it followed the mass killings in Atlanta by a white male. We discussed this yesterday. Yeah, but anyway, we can get into more depth here. Let's see here. And lo and behold, that white supremacy narrative blew up in Twitter users' faces when authorities revealed that Elisa's family emigrated to the U.S. from Syria, and that his own brother said in the past Elisa was bullied for being Muslim. And Let's see here. More from Newsweek. Some users have deleted their tweets calling him white. Others have defended their claims, saying they were based on Elisa's skin color rather than his ethnicity. Newsweek put the misleading posts to Twitter. The social network has been accused... Sorry. That's kind of a weird way of putting that. Newsweek put the misleading posts to Twitter. That sentence doesn't actually make sense. All right. The social network has been accused of left-wing bias and anti-Christian prejudice in the way that it polices an anti-Christian bias in the way that it polices speech on its platform. Absolutely true. 100% true. It absolutely is biased. 100%. Watch my videos if you're not sure about that. And I recommend watching all three, even though it's quite long if you watch all three. If you look at the view numbers, it progressively it's like halved every time. It's like the first video did okay, the second video did pretty terrible, and the last video like nobody watched. But all three videos are excellent. If you want to know why Jack Dorsey thinks the way he does, watch the third video. Watch the third video, Twitter video, because he reveals he suggests sort of in the last video at the end of this interview that he did with Joe Rogan that he hates his father, right? And I think that's what it comes from, because his father was a staunch Republican and his mother was a strong Democrat, and he hated his father, I think, and he loved his mother, and so he hates Republicans because of his father. It's kind of sad actually, but you know, the funny thing is, right? I think he considers his father like a bit of a bully, maybe. And so he has now all this power, and so he's censoring the people that he considers bullies, which are conservatives, right? He considers them the bad people because he doesn't like his father. But what he doesn't realize is that he's become the bully. He has become his father. Yeah, interesting point. So now you don't have to watch the third video because I just told you basically everything I say in it. In short. Let's see here. Okay. In January, for example, Twitter locked the account of the Catholic Review, apparently for tweeting an article that described Assistant Health and Human Services Secretary Rachel Levine as a biological man identifying as a transgender woman. I don't know how that would be a violation of their policies. I'm very, very, very aware of their policies because, you know, I watched this entire interview with them, and this actually shouldn't violate their policies. The way that they've written this specifically, it shouldn't violate their policies. A Twitter spokeswoman said the white Christian terrorist tweet and other false posts did not violate its rules. The tweets referenced are not in violation of Twitter rules, the spokesman noted, according to the magazine. We will not take action on every instance of misinformation. Currently, our misinformation rules cover COVID-19 misinformation, synthetic and manipulated media, so like deepfakes, and civic integrity. Civic integrity is code for you basically can't say that the 2020 election was not 100% legitimate. Of course, we would never say that on this channel because, as we all know, YouTube, the election of 2020 was totally legitimate. Biden totally won. There was nothing weird going on at all. Okay, moving on. Newsweek said Twitter's policies on synthetic and manipulated media include deepfake videos and civic integrity. Okay, I just said that. All right, so these are some tweets that Newsweek actually sent to Twitter to show them that, you know, these people were posting misinformation, which I can't believe Newsweek did this. Good job, Newsweek. Way to have some integrity despite the fact that you're a leftist scum. Okay. A white Christian terrorist killed 10 innocent people with a gun in a grocery store, Colorado, USA. That was one tweet from some random person whose name I'm not going to read. Let's see here. A second, courtesy of outspoken far-left actress Rosanna Arquette. Rosanna Arquette writes, "Call it what it is. White supremacist domestic terrorism." Somehow it's funnier when she writes, "Call it what it is," because that's not what it is. It's looking at a briefcase and saying, "Call it what it is. That is a deadly weapon." I guess if it's got a bomb inside. Okay, bad example. Let's see here. Newsweek also said it sent a tweet from former Democrat Virginia Congressman, congressional nominee Qasim Rashid. Qasim Rashid, which is really funny because he's a Muslim. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old black child. Police shot him in 1.7 seconds and let him suffer in agonizing pain for 4 minutes and die. Colorado terrorist is a grown white man who killed 10 people, including a cop. Cops arrest him alive and help him to a stretcher for immediate medical care. Okay, this is one thing. This is one thing that I actually want to talk about, because this is really a huge problem right now on social media, especially. Because you see all these posts. I saw a post the other day which was like, this white guy taken into custody. This black guy shot and killed. This white guy taken into custody. This black guy shot and killed, right? They have a bunch of pictures of, maybe like 8 pairs or something like that, of white men who were murderers who were taken into custody without incident, and black murderers who were just killed by police. And this is what we call anecdotal evidence, right? Anecdotal evidence can be great if you want to paint a picture, right? If you want to present an emotional narrative. But it's really bad for statistical data to understand what's going on in the bigger picture. Or potentially, right? Unless it illustrates the bigger picture accurately. The biggest problem with anecdotal evidence is that you can use anecdotal evidence to completely distort the actual story. So in this case, that's precisely what they're doing. Okay, so they're showing 8 instances of black men who were killed and white men who were taken into custody. But you could equally find, you could very easily go out and find incidents or instances. Which one should I choose? Let's say instances. Instances in which white men were killed and black men were apprehended without incident. You could easily find, not only could you find an equal number, you could find more. And the reason you could find more is because it's actually, per encounter, it's actually more likely that you will die as a white man encountering police than you will as a black man. Okay? The reason, so they always say that more black men die per capita, right? So if you take the black population, like let's say there's 100 black people, and you say there's 100 white people, and, six black people die for every 100 black people, and 5 white people die for every 100 white people, or something like that, right? So you say, okay, so there's more black people dying than there is white people. Or maybe it's even more than that. Maybe it's like 10 black people for every 5 white people, or something like that. The problem with that is that you have way more black crime, right? So you have so many more black criminals committing so many more crimes, and like vicious crimes like rape and murder and assault and armed robbery, stuff like that, that you're going to have many, many, many more encounters between black criminals and cops than you are between white criminals and cops, despite the fact that black people only make up about 13% of the population. And I shouldn't say many more because that gives the wrong impression. I think it's something about 50-50, right? So you have, if you took just the white crimes and just the black crimes, you'd find that's about 50-50. But weirdly, they include a lot of Hispanics in both groups, but mostly the Hispanics are in the white group. So if you take out the Hispanics, you're probably actually left with, I think, maybe a much smaller number of crimes committed by white people than black people. But let's go ahead and look at another article here. Well, let me read this first. Michael Harriot, this guy is a total racist. I read about his life story. He actually, his mother was like this crazy racist woman who used to read him, but she wanted him to be smart, so she'd make him read books, or she'd read books to him. But she would read books to him, but she'd change all the names of the characters because they were white books, books of like the Hardy Boys, white kids, but she would change the names of all the kids to be more black names, and she would pretend that everything that happened in the book was about black people. So this guy grew up thinking all of his favorite novels and stuff were about black people. He basically grew up in a house where his mom basically is almost like the Truman Show, right? Where she created this false reality for him, right? He grew up in a mostly black community. And so he thought mostly black people were in America, and like America was like a black country, until he got old enough to figure it out. And then he was like, oh man, my mom lied to me my whole life. But because his mom was such a crazy racist, he ended up being a crazy racist. Now he writes with a root. I mean, he's just a crazy guy. But he writes, pointing out how white suspects get the benefit of the doubt without being stopped, frisked, beaten, shot, or killed is not call for harsh treatment. It simply means we know cops are capable of treating people humanely, just not us. Y'all could use a few more ass whoopings, though. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Michael Harriet. Charming. He's talking about whooping the asses of white people. What an absolute degenerate racist. First of all, you're wrong. Okay. It's not that cops don't bring in black people without beating them or killing them. All right. It happens all the time. They just don't report it in the news. Right? They report the white people being taken into custody and they report the black people being shot. That's how they report it. So that's how you see it, but that's not the real narrative. You're supposed to be smart, Michael Harriet. You should be going in and you should be looking into the data, right? You should be going into the data, you should be researching this, and you should be finding out the truth. Anytime you confront somebody with this, they'll say, oh, that data is just wrong. That data is just false. They lie about it because the white supremacist country. So you can never win. I mean, it's like you provide evidence and people just won't accept it. They'll just say, oh, that doesn't fit my narrative, therefore it's not true. And then they'll provide other data and they'll say, but this data is true. That's called cherry picking, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so here's one issue with the way the world is, right? If you look up white men are more likely to die in an encounter with police, which is true, what you'll find almost all of the articles are the opposite, right? Research is clear. White people are not more likely than black people to be killed by police. Study claims white police no more likely to shoot. Okay, so this one's more legit. No more likely to shoot, I'm guessing, unarmed black men than unarmed white men. That's a good article, probably. I haven't looked at it, but the statistical paradox of police shootings. In aggregate, though, the percentage is higher for white people. 10 out of 100,000 white people killed versus 30 out of not 100,000, a million black people, because white people tend to encounter blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. Black people more, here we go. Black people more than 3 times as likely as white people to be killed by police. Researchers from Northeastern University confirm white people are not more likely to be killed by police than black people. Almost all of the articles that you will find are about how, I mean, it's very hard to find an article that contradicts the narrative that black people are more likely to be killed by police than white people. That is across the board what they're telling everybody all the time, every minute of the day, 7 days a week. That's constantly the narrative coming out of the media. But it's not true. The truth is black people commit more crime and therefore put themselves in position to be killed by police more often per capita, based on their demographic group. But the reality is, per incident, white people are more likely to be killed than black people. All right, so let's have a look at this. This is from the Washington Post. This is from back before they were completely insane. 2016, July 2016. Maybe they were already insane at this point. I don't know. But somebody somehow was able to write an article how a controversial study found that police are more likely to shoot whites, not blacks. Boom. Royland Fryer Jr. Let me just make sure. Let me see if this guy's black or white. Yeah, black guy. Yeah, I know this guy. That's why I wanted to look him up. Okay, so this is a black guy. Roland Fryer Jr. There we go. Never cared much for the cops. When he was growing up, his family dealt crack in Daytona Beach, Florida. And while Fryer was on his way to becoming a celebrated economist at Harvard University, many of his cousins and close friends were serving mandatory sentences in prison. During his childhood, encounters with police were fraught with danger. I don't 100% agree with everything that this guy says, because he still seems to think there's all this systemic racism and stuff like that. But he's much more honest than just about anybody else on the left that talks about this stuff. So I do like a lot of what he says. The Economist published his findings this week in a draft paper that's already causing controversy. On the one hand, the study shows that nationwide black and Hispanic civilians are indeed more likely to be manhandled, handcuffed, or beaten by the police, even if they are compliant and law-abiding. Fryer writes, the prejudice in law enforcement is real and harmful in many ways, causing cynicism and delusion, especially amongst boys of color. Will stop committing crimes, maybe? When it comes to police killings, though, Fryer has painstakingly reviewed evidence from Houston that suggests that police are not racially biased in how they use lethal force. This is a surprising finding that challenges the widespread view that police disproportionately shoot black suspects. In Houston, at least, that might not be the case. Or anywhere. Some economists have criticized the report. Let's dismiss that because it's stupid. Okay. What's true in Houston, a large multicultural city with a diverse police force, might not be true elsewhere, but it is. Despite its narrow purview, this study still offers one of the first comprehensive and rigorous examinations of some of the most detailed data that exists on police shootings. Let's see. Okay, findings, blah, 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 blah. Okay, startling data on police shootings. There we go. The data from New York and the federal survey did not contain enough information about killings by police for Fryer to draw... God, look at this, Rachel Levine. You're a dude with long hair. Stop pretending. Okay. For Fryer to draw conclusions about the lethal use of force. He collected records on police shootings in 10 major police departments between 2000 and 2015. The data showed that officer reported shootings before being attacked more frequently in encounters with white suspects. Sorry, I didn't read that correctly. I'm going to do it again. The data showed that officers reported shooting before being attacked more frequently in encounters with white suspects, while officers said that they were attacked first more frequently in encounters with black suspects. So despite the fact that black suspects tend to shoot at cops more frequently than white people, they tend to shoot white people more still. Y'all racist against white people. That's the problem. You're pretending that black people, there's this like epidemic of unarmed black men being killed. It's not true. It's not true. They shoot white people more. All right. What to make of this pattern was not clear. What do you mean it's not clear? It's absolutely crystal clear. What are you talking about? Without more detail about individual cases, Fryer could not determine whether there was racial bias in their decision to shoot. Of course there is. Here's the obvious answer. The obvious answer is that police are absolutely terrified of being called racist because they shot a black person or a Hispanic or something like that. But there's no consequence to shooting white people. Police officer shoots a white person, nothing happens to them. They stay in their job, everything's fine. So they can shoot white people, no consequence. That's the reason. That's the reason. Okay? You want to know the reason? That's the reason. Of course. All right. So The Economist took a closer look at incidents in Houston, the city that provided the greatest amount of detail. In addition to shootings, he considered cases in which an officer reported that the suspect reacted violently or resisted arrest, but the officer did not shoot. In these potentially violent encounters with suspects, there was no disparity in how likely officers from Houston Police Department were to shoot black suspects and white suspects. Here's how Fryer came to his conclusions. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. So if a suspect became violent, they were as likely to shoot them. But if they hadn't shot, right? If they hadn't tried to shoot the police officer or something like that, the police officer was more likely to shoot the white person. So it's messed up. Okay, here's how Fryer came to his conclusions. I shouldn't laugh at that. That's messed up. That is messed up. Why did I laugh? It's interesting. Human mind is fascinating, isn't it? All right. Here's how Fryer came to his conclusions. He began with the data on all 507 officer-involved shootings that happened in Houston over the last 15 years. About 52% of those shootings involved a black suspect, while 14% involved a non-black, non-Hispanic suspect. Jeez, that's crazy. That is crazy. 52% of the shootings involved a black suspect, and 14% were white people. That is mental. But again, it's not because they're racist against black people. It's because black people commit so much more crime. All right. Since Houston is 24% black, the fact that more than half the police shootings involved black people might seem like a sign of racial biased policing. Yet it's also possible that Houston police more frequently encounter black residents in dangerous situations. Thank you. I can't believe the Washington Post even put out this article. To me, this is amazing. Somebody's probably going to see this and be like, we got to take that article down. This is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. This is the truth. This is the stuff that needs to get out that nobody talks about. It drives me nuts. I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time with this, but this is important. To account for this possibility, Fryer analyzed encounters with police in which the suspect was arrested on a charge that indicates a potentially dangerous situation. He analyzed arrests in which officers accused the suspect of one of the following charges: assaulting the police officer, attempted capital murder of police officer, resisting arrest, evading arrest, interfering with an arrest. About 58% of such arrests involved black suspects. Amazing. While only about 12% of the arrests involved non-black, non-Hispanic suspects, i.e. white. I'm glad that they took the Hispanics out of it, actually, because this is It's much more telling when you take the Hispanic aspect out of it. And that's not because Hispanics are necessarily violent or bad people or anything like that, okay? And we're not saying that about black people either, right? We're specifically talking about the criminal element, right? Criminals, bad people. But there are Hispanic gangs, right? That's a common thing that you'll find in certain kinds of cities, especially, I think probably Houston, you'll probably find Hispanic gangs. So it's good to take the Hispanic demographic out of that. Those statistics are pretty similar to the statistics from the officer-involved shootings. So while it's true that more than half the police shootings involved a black suspect, from the perspective of the Houston police, more than half the dangerous situations they encountered also involved black suspects. Police officers have a lot of leeway in deciding whether to book people on certain charges. For instance, in some cities, nearly any minor pretext is enough for an officer to arrest a suspect on suspicion of assaulting a police officer. In New York, blah, 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 don't care. All right. I mean, I love this. I love this. At the end of the day, Fryer says, this is the economist that did this study, the black guy. He writes, at the end of the day, biases will still be possible. We can't randomly assign race, and we don't have the perfect social science experiment here. In the coming months, these and other parts of the paper will be debated among academics as the study undergoes peer review. As Washington Post stated, you know what's funny about this? I think, if I remember correctly, this article was published, it was peer-reviewed, it was considered to be solid academic research, and it was well respected. But because there was so much backlash against it, because the left was like, this is nonsense, this is terrible, we hate this. I don't know what, I think whatever the journal was that originally published it retracted their peer review, validation. They were just like, nope, this is not a valid article. And they retracted it or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that happened. Let's see here. Black people are 2.5 times more likely to be shot dead by police, which is actually tragic. That should not happen. Looking specifically at the 93 fatal shootings of unarmed civilians recorded by the Post, one scholarly analyst concluded that those civilians were significantly more likely to be black than white, even after taking into account the level of violent crime in the neighborhood of the killing. But they are committing more crimes. Specifically, they're committing much more violent crimes. If you look at the statistics, it's terrible. Fryer study goes a step further, looking at the broad range of details of individual cases and attempting to determine the level of danger the officer might have confronted. Fryer, however, still does not have the answers he wants, he said. To make progress, we have to elevate the discussion here, adding that he welcomes critiques of his study. If folks want to ask hard questions about whether Houston is representative, or what if we use Chicago, God, man, ! Fryer said, that's where we need to be in these discussions. I mean, I do think that he would have liked to find bias. Maybe not. But the guy was fairly assessing the situation. But this is not the only study. This is far from the only study to show that white people are actually more likely to be shot by police. I'm sorry I took so much time with that. But it is important. If we go look here, there's a lot of people who responded negatively about this race baiting crap. This guy, Greg Price, he writes, race baiting blue checks immediately assume that the Boulder shooter was white. Turns out he's Middle Eastern. Well done, race baiting blue checks. Caleb Hull writes, and again, and this, he posts this thing. This narrative really isn't going to age well because everybody keeps saying he's white and this is about white supremacy and all this. I actually responded about this on my Twitter. Let's see here. Where's my Twitter? There it is. So this woman, Amy Siskind, who's like a known leftist piece of human garbage, she writes, let's mourn the victims, but not... Okay, so after she wrote something about how he's a white male and he's this is all white supremacy, she then wrote, let's mourn the victims... after she found out he was a Muslim, she wrote, let's mourn the victims, but not glorify the killer with the intention of having his name widely known. So then I wrote... Oh, he's a Muslim? Crap. Nobody say his name. Maybe we can still pretend this guy was a racist Trump supporter! ! And I got quite a few likes compared to normal. I don't usually get that many likes, but the amazing Sebastian Gorka retweeted me, and often when he does that, I get more likes than usual. I have two friends that retweet me occasionally. Sebastian Gorka and my friend Elijah Schaefer. If either one of them retweet my stuff, it blows up. But I'm trying to build my Twitter, so hopefully I won't need their help so much in the future. All right. Let's see here. Let's move on to the next story. We actually have quite a few stories, so I got to go quick here. Now, this one, I love this story. Let me find the article here. Okay, so it's called Mexican President Blames Migrant Crisis on Biden. I love this so much because it's so unexpected. We read an article the other day about Mexican officials saying that Trump's policies were better, and that that Biden's policies exacerbated this. Let me check the comments just to make sure nothing horrible is going on here. Yeah, everybody seems to be okay. Nobody's complaining about the audio or anything like that. So, all right, okay. So yeah, I don't have a lot of viewers today. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, guys, thanks for watching. The ones who are here. All right, let's move back to this story. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador blames migrant crisis on Biden. So now we're not only saying that toxic masculinity, weekdays 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.